Good morning. Welcome to Our Neutral Voices presents A Financial Pillar. I'm Ryan Leopard, and joining me again today are my friends from DR Financial, Chris Hanna,
Good morning.
Mark Ellington,
Good morning.
and from Our Neutral Voices, James Scott.
I'm going to say it like Mark. Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
fire
good-
up. Let's
good
go, Ryan.
morning.
Bring it,
Just for our
brother.
listeners out there, Mark's on one this morning. Yeah.
This is
Lots
It's
of
that good
energy.
coffee.
Coffee.
third
Oh.
cup of coffee this morning.
You say the producer
Whatever,
gave
or
me the
whatever's
best
in that
coffee
coffee
in the world.
mug.
Yeah.
Mark's gonna keep the entertainment high today, right? So, but let's start off kind of recapping the ONV and Brightpoint seminar that we had on Saturday, where Mindy Krupp was talking about budgeting. Right, I had the pleasure of attending for the first time, and one of the biggest things that stood out to me was the dynamic that was in the crowd, or that showed up for there. A lot of young faces, which was very, very impressive. James, how many people did you think we had there?
Maybe 35, 36 total.
35. Okay, and of those, how many would you say were,
Teens still in high school, and maybe half.
half of them? Yeah. So that was the thing that stood out to me. That was very impressive, is that they took the time to be there, and that they found value in that. So, I mean, were those a lot of the same repeat people that have been there in the
No,
previous ones? or
New
was-
faces, definitely
New
new
faces.
faces. But the most beautiful thing was looking at the youth and how attentive they were to Mindy as she talked and shared. One thing I would have loved to see was to hear the youth speak. Like, I was curious as to know where they were mentally when it came to budgeting. So, like, if they ever did a budget, if they really understood the importance of a budget. So I would have loved to have seen that, the more interaction, just to get a better understanding of them, where they were,
Yep.
and what they walked away with. We would have been able to gauge that a little better as far as the information that we gave. Information was beautiful that many of them gave.
Yeah, Mindy did a great job with the information, and one of the more impressive things also was her being vulnerable out there,
Always,
telling,
always.
her personal, struggles financially that she's had in the
Yep.
past, and how she overcame them and how she deals with them now. So anytime you get somebody up there that can speak from experience and is vulnerable and allows you to, kind of enter their realm, it's a great time.
And her husband was there.
He was, yes.
So she used him a lot to explain their transitions in life and the reality of it, and their struggles. And he was definitely okay with it. He sat there and smiled and just welcomed the openness and the transparency.
Yeah, and then myself and then one of my coworkers, Lisa, who was on the show a few weeks ago about mortgages, were in attendance there, and James kind of put us on the spot and called us up, and like I said, told the crowd, I was just amazed that the young faces were there. I didn't say this to them, which I thought about later. I wish I would have said something different, but it was more of, I know what I was doing in high school on a Saturday night, and it was not sitting in a room learning about budgeting, right? So it was very impressive to see that, and I'm sure their future selves will thank them for that, being there as long as, especially if they continue to keep coming to that. So all in all, a great event. Great
Yeah,
turnout.
and to watch them interact, because she gave a spreadsheet, along with the actual budget breakdown, and so tables work together as teams. And to watch the youth men immediately just grab the pens, take their paper, and scoot up to the table and team up and begin to dive in. And if they had questions, they was talking amongst each other, and they worked it out.
Yep.
They were just beautiful, the interaction all the way through. There's one more left, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show. But, man, strongly encourage people, man, get the knowledge, get the information. There's a lot of things in the school system that is not relevant to kids' lives, like budgeting. I mean, I don't know what, we talked about it before on the set, like, when did we learn how to budget? If you don't get it in your household and you're going to school every day and they're not teaching it to you at the school that you're going to, I mean, you just...
That's what I meant when I said that, their future selves will thank them for that. When they're out of school, when they have their first apartment, their first house, and they're learning this stuff now, hopefully they don't have to go through those trials and tribulations of making the mistakes to learn from the mistakes, right? They'll know up front.
Yeah, and we talk about intentionalism a lot, so I would strongly encourage, like, I didn't know it, so I didn't have it to teach my kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's important for us as parents, young parents, man, learn that stuff. Like, be intentional about putting yourself in a space. We talk about relationships all the time on this set. If it's relationships with a banker, if it's relationships with a financial institution, whatever it is, get a relationship, get the information, find out where these financial seminars at, and learn. Because the more you learn about financial budgeting, the more stable you could be as you grow forward in life, and you could teach your kids at a young age. It's amazing to know that I didn't have it. I'll just be real, man. Like my kids, I could never teach my kids about budgeting, about financing. Matter of fact, there was never a conversation.
Right.
Like, period. How to write a check, make a check out, to do anything. And I'm not a dumb dude at all.
Right.
Not at all. But it was just, you don't prioritize, or you don't take the time to engage to be like, man, I need to get this information so that I could be better for myself, but also teach it to my kids so they don't have to wait till they get 50-some years old to try to understand what it is to manage money and do the right things with your money, to invest, to have an insurance policy. And it's just crazy. Like,
And to our listeners out there, if you have young ones, these seminars are not just for older folks that may be struggling with that. It's educational for everyone. So it's never too soon to get started. So encourage your young ones to come out to the seminar, learn about credit, learn about budgeting, learn about banking, learn about these things that they're not necessarily learning about in school, right? So they can get some, kind of one-on-one, per se type help and education. So next one is October 21st, I think.
Correct.
Right. That one will be around credit, which is, definitely a important topic for them to learn too. Fortunately, a lot of times, we turn 18, 19, we get a credit card, no one's taught us about credit, and now we start off in the negative, right? Start on debt. We miss some payments or something like that, and we're in a hole. So come out and learn about that before you're able to get the credit, right? And know what you're doing when you start. So going from that, let's jump into today's topic, which is nothing more fun than to talk about taxes, right? We got two professionals here, DR Financial, Chris and Mark. That's what they do for a living, right? And it's coming up on the end of tax season, right?
Yeah.
For most of us, I think tax season usually ends in April, but there's that thing called extension that some people who are behind the eight ball don't kind of get into, so they file for the extension, and that time's coming up now, right? So kind of talk to us about what it is that you do.
Yeah, so our firm, ProTax, we do personal tax returns, LLCs, partnerships, corporations, and some trusts as well. So we're a full-service tax business, mostly bookkeeping and payroll. So we help a lot of clients make sure they get their tax returns done. Some clients like to have them done before the April 15th deadline, but anymore with all the rules and how many clients there are that need help out there, it's really hard to get them all done by then. But like I said, some people need extensions because they just haven't got themselves around to getting their stuff organized, and that's okay. In reality, the most important thing is have enough taxes paid in by the deadlines. So if you have enough taxes paid in, or at least work with a professional, and that can be more of our conversation, then they can help you get enough paid in, and then you can have a little more time to get it filed rather than trying to hurry it up at the last minute and get it done, which usually, if you try to hurry up the last minute, it's not a great idea.
I always love the saying when there's a deadline, but then there's an exception to that deadline.
Yeah.
Right. Then what's the point of the deadline? Right.
So
Extension is not,
I get it when it
extension isn't a
comes to
bad
taxes.
thing.
Yeah.
It gives you time to get your act together, or just also helps us to make sure we can spread things out and help them and spend more time getting things right for them. Because get people hurry in and get it all together to think I have to have it done at a certain time, when, hey, take your time. We can file the extension. It doesn't hurt you as long as Chris says it's paid in.
Well, that's why I was wondering why the government just didn't put a deadline of like June. Give them 2 more months rather than going through the hassle of filing extensions and things like that. I don't know.
I tell you,
it's always weird to me.
I mean, when COVID was around, those years, that's when the deadline was. And I'll tell you, it was a lot smoother for the clients and our staff because the stress levels went way down. But again, that's another conversation for another day.
Is there fees with filing extensions? Is there fees to file an extension?
No fees for filing an extension.
I thought maybe that was the catch
that's
there.
one of the great things. There's no fees for that. And so this year, it's on October 16th because the 15th falls on a Sunday, so they give you an extra day. So for those procrastinators out there, because I know there may be a few watching and a few of us here maybe from time to time, they have that time. As long as you get that extension filed, back in April, You have up until October 15th, 16th this year.
And from a business standpoint, I get the extension on there because there's a lot more complicated things coming through, at later point in times and all that type stuff with it. So from a business standpoint, I get the extension. Most times I would assume individuals, they want that tax return right away.
Yeah,
right? If they get a return.
It depends on the
paying, I see why
right.
they want an extension also.
It
So.
depends on the individuals. We're seeing clients that have brokerage statements, getting those a lot later.
Yes.
Even they're technically supposed to have them out by February 1st, but we're seeing them all the way through March and even April sometimes. Not sure why. Why they don't get in trouble for that, but
Yeah.
but that's okay. I mean, again, Mark and I don't mind it because it kind of spreads out the work. It's kind of ridiculous. I talked to every business owner. And I said, how would you like to have all your business have to be done within a 2-month time period?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. But that's just the benefit for our government to encourage people to have a little bit extra stress and get things done quickly. So again, if you get your taxes paid in ahead of time,
Right.
then you can use that extension very easily and not have the fear. And I think it's better for your tax team to have a longer time to look at things instead of, again, we all know when you have to hurry up and do things, usually you're not as quite detailed as you are if you have that time.
Absolutely.
So help your tax team out a little bit, by just working and more closely with a firm, that takes that time with you.
So that's actually what's going to lead me into my next question is, so talk to me about the benefits, pros, cons as to working with somebody like yourself with your own firm as opposed to maybe like a more commercialized H&R Block.
For us, it's about that personal relationship. We really like to pre-plan. So at H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, or I'm not going to name more, but just those type of retail services, you're not going to usually have a whole lot of pre-planning. So I guess that's kind of the difference. If you're just going to walk in, pay taxes, get it done, that's fine for that type. For us, it's more of someone that's saying, I want to look at my future. How do I withhold the right tax? How do I, put money away for my future? Look at these broad things, that can be more helpful to your financial future. And especially if you're a small business owner, a lot of times you need that extra help. If you're just a small business owner that's going in and filing your taxes in, April or whatever, there's usually a lot more things you could be doing ahead of time to help yourself out rather than just working hard all year long and then, I'll see where it ends up. That pre-planning can be huge.
Well, and this time of year, Chris and I are really busy because we're meeting. We call them year-end meetings, but we're meeting with a lot of business people. Let's end the year right. Let's make sure we've made all the adjustments that need to be made, all the planning that needs to be made before December 31st. So this is really an important time for Chris and I to meet.
More of a
with our
consulting
clients.
time for
we're
what's going to
looking
happen
into-
next year, what's coming
we're
up.
looking at this year, looking into next year, and saying, how do we plan for next year? Hey, my business is growing. I really feel like I'm going to make this much more money. How do we plan for that? Now, not later. And that also helps us tax-wise. But our firm also, with the bookkeeping and everything, as a business owner, you come one place and everything is done there. You're not going to, your investment guy, your tax guy, maybe your attorney. All that is taking place at one time, and all that planning takes place in a year-end meeting. So.
So I definitely understand from a business standpoint the advantage of having somebody like yourselves to do that because we're talking about more complicated returns, right? But somebody like myself, I have a W-2 job, simple tax return. I got many options out there. I can do TurboTax online myself. I can go to H&R Block. I can go wherever. Why would I utilize somebody like yourselves?
Well, I think one thing I see a lot is, especially with just a W-2 coming in, is people under withholding because they don't understand the tax methods that are used for withholding, I guess is the best way to say it. Meaning somebody that every year is consistently, maybe in the 12% bracket, and you find out they're withholding 8% on their withholding. And so every year they're owing taxes when they get to tax season. And for a lot of people, that's very difficult to understand why is that happening. And sometimes it just happens by mistake. I've had people go, do you realize you're only withholding 5% for taxes when you're in the 12% bracket every year? No, I had no clue. I wondered why I was owing taxes every year when I never did before. Those are the things I see that withholding, and as you have life changes, right? So one of the other big things I see is that, somebody's married, they have a couple kids, everything's kind of hunky-dory on those tax returns for 10, 15 years, and as those kids start aging out, getting past that 17, those child tax credits fall off, and all of a sudden they go, well, why is my tax bill a lot more than what it was? I'm making the same amount of money. Well, we can help explain that, sit down there and help you look at different ways maybe to help save taxes in different ways than the child tax credit helping you out. People get to understand, how can I owe more tax when it's made the same amount of money? Well, that's the way the tax code works. So working with a professional like us, I can look at that ahead of time and help you with other ideas can be a lot more beneficial than just walking into a retail type tax company and just, here's my tax returns, thank you, and move on.
So that's what I personally did. I started out when I was self-employed many years ago as a 1099 employee, using somebody like yourself or a firm, and then once I went back in the W-2 world, I just stuck with them because the advantage I saw was I had a relationship, something we talk a lot about the show on, having a relationship with your banker, having a relationship with your CPA or whoever it may be. So it wasn't just, tax time that I talked with them. If I had tax questions, whether it was for me or a client or something like that, it was somebody that I had a relationship with I could just call up, right? To me, it was worth the maybe a little bit extra money because it wasn't much more than doing it like on a TurboTax or something like that. And I believe, it's been a long time since I've looked at it, but it was actually probably less expensive than like a retail, like an HR block or something like that. And you got a relationship with somebody that you can continue on through the years. And you never know where your life's going to go and how you can grow and what else they can help you with. If you don't have that relationship for somebody to help guide you and give you that information, you might be missing out.
Yeah. And it's a lot harder to call those tax offices in August or September or October. Yep. Many times those offices are closed at that point. So, you're on your own to learn. Where you can call our office and talk to us and talk to our staff, and we can help you out.
And you're talking, not just the taxes, the whole planning is taking place. While you're working through your taxes, we're also talking to you about where do we put that money? Do you need an IRA or Roth? How do all those things fit as you're in there?
Helping with contribution
If we need the CPA, Chris and I
limits.
could call them in. Yeah, it's really where you can combine a lot of things, not driving all over town to several different people, but we can plan. That's the importance of having a plan. Like you said, you're building a relationship.
Absolutely. Chris?
And I think a lot of times, too, you'll find people that have worked, for an employer many years. Yeah. And, they're doing that, and then they're like James, basically. All of a sudden, they're like, I have this great idea I want to open a store. I've been working for this company for many years, and it's given me a great idea to try this type of business. I want to open my own business. Well, again, I think those retail stores are great for doing your W-2 tax returns, but is there going to be much advice really on how to really get the business set up, how to work, my payroll, my bookkeeping, how do I run a business successfully? A lot of it is the retail side, or you're selling to clients, and that is a lot of it. But there's another whole half behind the scenes trying to pay payroll, doing the bookkeeping. You can do your best job selling stuff every day to a client, and if your books are a mess, it's a nightmare trying to get tax season done. And that's sometimes why it takes longer, because people walk in thinking, I'm going to give you a shoebox full of receipts, and here you go.
Figure it out.
Well, you know what? That takes a lot more time. It's going to cost you a lot more money than having a good team. Plus, as James would know, as a business owner, it's probably nice to know your numbers a little bit on how your business is doing, rather than just like, I think we're doing okay.
Amen to that one.
Absolutely. You understand that part, James?
Oh,
yeah. You got a few businesses, right?
You better understand that you wake up, the lights will be off, and
you won't know where
you got payroll to pay the people.
So let me ask you this: how did you learn? Right? Did you have somebody like Mark or Chris that helped you, or did you just learn by trial and error?
No, I always had an accountant from day one. So that was a beautiful thing. So that was just something, you talk about relationship. Right. Like, our accountant was so good, she would actually come here like once a week and sit down at the computer here and go into the QuickBooks and do all the budgeting, the stuff that you're talking about. So she would log everything, every week. And so when it got to time to do the taxes, she did the work. So it was easy for her because she kept it structured. So what he's saying is extremely relevant.
So that once a week actually saved her time come tax time because you were all organized, right?
And the great thing now is because of technology, like you mentioned QuickBooks, and there's other software out there too, but like QuickBooks, there's QuickBooks Online now. So you can have that software right there where, James can access it from this end. We can access it from the office at the same time and have a conversation. So I know, it is about personal relationships, but, every business is a business too. So now that we can call you up or do a Zoom, we can actually pull QuickBooks on the screen and talk to you at the same time. We don't have to travel across town necessarily. Not that we won't, and we'd like to go out see our clients, and they come to us. But everybody knows everybody's busy, and there are more efficient ways for both parties to get that done.
Especially within the technology and the banking world, too, because I know from being there, a lot of banks have on their platforms where their online banking is compatible with the QuickBooks, so it automatically just transfers everything for you. And then, somebody like, James can actually grant his accountant access to that information. So you don't even need to talk to him. When you need something to help prepare James' taxes or bookkeeping or whatever, you can just log in on a kind of like view-only basis and see the numbers that you need to see, right? James is protected because you really can't transfer money or do anything, but you can get the information without having to bother James and taking him away from what he does to make a living, the job, right? And time savings.
And I think that's an important thing because we see a lot of small business people. They get in the business because they're good at what they do.
Yep.
And then they get bogged down in the bookkeeping. And I'm always saying to them, you didn't get in this to do bookkeeping. And why don't you let us do that? Or you'll find somebody that says, I'm going to have Aunt Sally do it. And then they bring it to us, and it actually costs more. Many times.
Because Aunt Sally wasn't very good.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what she's doing, and we got to correct it.
I had those conversations all the time at the bank with individuals. We're setting up business accounts, from the CPA standpoint, helping them understand the benefit of that, and also like a payroll. They get into it like, I need to keep costs down because I'm starting a business, so I'm going to do my own payroll. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Well, when you start talking in terms of time is money. You're the expert in your field. That's why you're starting the business. The more time you spend on that, behind the scenes bookkeeping stuff, is the less time you have to be out there helping build your business. It's worth it. Invest in yourself. Find a good CPA. Find a good payroll processing company. Whatever you need to do the books, let them do that when you do what you do.
And with us, you can go a la carte. How much do you want us involved? We can be involved quarterly. We can do it all, whatever. How much do you want us involved? And I think that's a good thing.
It's worth the expense.
And I want to add, I think, also, I talked to a lot of clients when they're doing their own bookkeeping or a lot, and I'm like, do you really want to work all week in your business? And I imagine at that point, you're usually not doing too much bookkeeping during the day. When you're doing it is in the evening and on the weekends. And I said, is that really how you want to spend your evening and weekends when you're not working? Is in front of the books?
Just from a mental standpoint, right? You need that time for yourself.
Or a family relationship. Last thing, I want to be able to hang out with my wife and hang out with my children and have a good time being a married husband and father. I don't want to be the bookkeeper on the weekend and evenings.
If you don't, that divorce is going to cost you more than that CPA was going to cost you, right?
You'll be doing
what you have to do.
You'll be doing a lot more bookkeeping.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It's a very minimal cost when you think about what it can cost you in the long run by being away from the business itself, or from a family atmosphere, or even your mental state. Right. If you're spending 100% of your time working, coming home, doing the bookkeeping, you have no time to enjoy yourself for the family or anything like that. You're not giving your best, right, when you're at work.
And I think there's two safety points too. One is, some people think, well, okay, now I'll hire, somebody come in and help me pay my bills, or I'll hire a bookkeeper and I'll pay him a wage or a salary. Well, that can oftentimes be way more expensive than just hiring a firm like us to help you with their bookkeeping and payroll. Because a lot of times when you're hiring somebody in, you got to hire them for 40 hours. A lot of times, or whatever hours are, benefits and that kind of stuff, where we don't have to have all that. We can have a flat fee for our time.
So leads me to my next question as well. Liability. How does that work? If you're taking on, the taxes and filing them and doing all that stuff, if there's any mistakes, do you take the liability, or does that still fall back on the person?
Well, yeah, if there are mistakes, yes. We will take that liability. But, we have deadlines we got to hit. But there's times that we have to work with the client to help hit those deadlines. Just, again, a lot of procrastination out there. But on the safety point, too, is, also I've had a lot of clients who had hired bookkeepers in who, unfortunately, were unethical and started stealing money and that kind of stuff. And I think your point of the banking part is very important, because what I encourage a lot of clients to do is let the client write the checks out for their bills. that, a lot of us can do that. Again, that's good budgeting and that kind of stuff, and learning all that. Let them write out the checks for the bills and make their deposits. If we only have basically a digital access to see their banking, we're not able to get in there and mess with your money. So that's a safety that as a business owner that you can have, rather than hiring somebody that can come in once a week or twice a week to pay your bills and do all that kind of stuff. That's where money sometimes gets taken.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about celebrities being taken advantage of, right? And those are celebrities, and you're only hearing about it because they're celebrities. How many people behind the scenes are just millionaires or business owners that they just trust somebody because they don't want to deal with it, and then all of a sudden, wait a second, if they even find out, money's going missing. So, having those things in place to help cover you, as well as having somebody seek out a CPA that you trust. That's not going to. And then at the end of the day, not giving them too much access, right? Like power of attorney or something like that to be able to do everything for you.
Or we'll get somebody that all of a sudden needs a bank loan. Well, their books aren't right. They got to come in and ask us to clean it up enough to present to the banker. Oh, Mark, I need a loan. He needs this, and how do I get that? And otherwise they can call up. We can pump it right out. So that's another thing.
Absolutely.
Sooner or later you're gonna need good books.
So one of the main benefactors is the relationship building.
Yeah.
And the trust factor.
Absolutely.
And plus, a lot of people, I think, are the illusion that you guys will be way more expensive.
Right.
Than
that's the illusion. I would agree with that. That's why I think a lot of people do end up going to an H&R Block or something like, privately owned CPA firm or something like that. They're going to charge me way more. Well, it depends on where you go, right?
And there may be some out there, but you need to shop around and find out.
Yeah, because some large CPA firms, right, they specialize in large corporate taxes. Like for them to do a W-2, it's really not worth their time. So they are going to charge you more if they want to, but that's not everywhere. A firm like, DR Financial doesn't sound like that would be the case, right? They're going to be reasonably priced.
Yeah, ProTax, who we do our accounting through, we're not like that. I think we're very reasonably cost for what we do. And helping our clients out. And I think another thing is just, as we sit there help you with taxes, Mark mentioned this earlier, is at the same time we can have that conversation about how to put money away for the future and for your retirement. It's hard to do that at some of those retail shops. Their business model is
churn and burn, right?
Yeah, their business model is not
people
that.
in the lobby waiting to get in there, done with yours, get them out, get the next one.
Right. So if you're thinking about how can I retire, that's where you want to work with a firm like us. We can help you look at your taxes, make suggestions, and then walk right into that investment conversation right there at one place at one time.
That's beautiful, because let's just take like a lot of people that get like child credit, and let's talk about the poverty area for a minute. And these are just stories I hear, like people, if they got so many kids, man, they get like thousands of dollars back and all of that. So if you're getting all of that money back, then if you're sitting down with somebody that truly cares about you, they can be like, okay, let's try to sit down and put a budget together immediately to see, let's take your immediate needs and address those, but then let's take the excess money and let's see if we can spread it out to make sure it could be a cushion for you, and then even put some back to grow.
Because as those kids leave, then your income's going to drop. And so, plan ahead, and because
that's
without
not
a vision, people perish.
I
mean, without a plan, it causes chaos and paralysis. Really, if you don't have a plan, you don't know what to do. It causes paralysis. But I want to go back. The average small businessman or woman doesn't count their time. Think about it. I didn't. What's my time worth? We don't think about that. You just work as hard as you can. Then if you really count and sit down, just what Chris was talking about, what my time worth with my family, but also I built my business on my talents, and they aren't bookkeeping. So my time is worth a lot more spent out there growing my business. But small business, we just work hard, try to build the thing. We don't think about what our time's worth.
Is a consultation free with you guys? Say like if a business owner just they feel in their mind like, I can't afford to, but then they don't really understand that you can't afford not to. You'll be in a much better space if you did.
Right, and I think it's important, again, when you know companies like ProTax and DR Finance Group, all of us know people too. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have friends, family members, and through those relationships with our family, we'll find out there's people that, hey, I'm starting a business, or hey, I want to save for retirement. those conversations will come up, and it's great when you have a firm that you can say, hey, why don't you go talk to these guys? They know what they're doing with taxes and investments and planning and helping out. So sometimes it may not be for you, but that's why, for me, I'm always a real big person on learning things. Because next thing I know, James may say, hey, do you know about this? Yes, I do. Or, no, I don't, but I know this person does. I want to be very helpful to my friends and family.
One of my best referral sources for the bank is somebody that does exactly what you do, right? Because he sits down with his clients, they look at different things, and maybe in different interest rate environments when it's very low, he's referring people. Let's not use your cash. We can invest your cash in certain ways that we can make a higher return than what you'd pay in interest. If you need this money, go see Ryan over here, and he'll get you a home equity line because you got equity in your house, and utilize the bank's money. That's what he always says. Let's utilize the bank's money at a 3% or 4%. When rates were that low.
Man, do you know some homeowners don't even know that?
Oh yeah.
That when you have a home that you establish equity in your house, do you believe people are not aware of that?
Yeah, they don't understand that it's really an asset that they have.
It's really an asset they have. And that's just the difference in mentality that I was talking about on previous shows, is that when the mentality of a millionaire, right, or large business owner is not to let their money just sit there. So for them to have the equity in their house sitting there, it's not doing anything for them, right? It might be growing in value a little bit, but they could utilize that money to make more money and more money and more money. So they're not just sitting there doing that. And that's where somebody like Chris and Mark come into play to help educate them on that. Like, you got $200,000 sitting in equity in your house. You could be investing that in something else, or you could be doing, instead of you're buying a second home. Don't use your cash. Let's use your cash for this, where we can make an 8% return or 10%, whatever it might be. Use the cash in your home. Just use the bank's money, not your money.
Because I find a lot of people that do earn a W-2 only are a lot more into paying off their house quickly. And for some people, I understand that's an area of comfort and
get
peace
rid of that
for
bill,
them.
hopefully.
And I understand, but for the others, you have to look at the financial things of that, and maybe there's other things you should be doing with those dollars rather than paying off your house really quickly. Everybody's situation is totally different, so that's why you need to sit down with somebody like us so we can see your situation and explain it. But sometimes the best thing is not to pay off your house as fast as you can.
Yep. I was watching a podcast snippet, I think it was yesterday, and there was somebody on there talking about, like, there's a misconception that, millionaires are these genius people, right? They're so smart. No, they're not always that. What they do is they're risk takers, but they also find people who know what they're doing, and they listen to them, right? They have an accountant. They have a financial advisor. They have somebody that says, hey, boom, you got this sitting here, do this with it. And they say, okay, and they go do that, right? They're listening to people that are smarter than them, and that money keeps going, right? Keeps growing. That's how they got to where they are.
Well, and think about it, you take the equity in your home, maybe you buy a rental property that's returning 10 to 15% on that money. I mean, otherwise you're just sitting there, and it's great to be out of debt.
Oh, yep. But, good feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
But debt you can handle is, that's how you move ahead.
Absolutely. So, running out of time here, but one thing I wanted to make sure to touch on is when you get that tax return, right? Especially in a community that we're talking about, like an impoverished community, we're waiting on that tax return. We go to H&R Block because boom, we'll have it in our account supposedly quicker. I don't know if that's true or not, but when you get that tax return, that's a great time to actually do your savings, right? Think about it this way. That tax return isn't money to just go below. It's your savings throughout the year. You were just paying to the government, or you got it returned. Find a bank account and put a portion of that in there. If you get a $10,000 tax return, which is not unrealistic for a lot of people, especially people with kids, don't go buying everybody in the house a brand new phone. Right? It's the cell phone industry for a long time. And tax season, just as busy as it was for you, finish it up, it was as busy as it was for us because people were coming in, blowing that money, buying everybody in the house a new iPhone or, whatever it was. It's like, your phone works fine, right? Why do you need a new phone every year for it? Take that money. You need a new car, you need something, that's one thing. But take that money, put it in a savings account so when your car does break down, you have money to fix it. Or you need an unexpected expense. We were talking about that, the budgeting thing. Set $10 aside. Do something. Just start somewhere. That tax return is a good time to start somewhere. You put $1,000 of that $10,000 away now, $1,000 away next year, $1,000 away next year. Eventually, those child tax credits are going to go away, right? But you now have that money maybe sitting in the savings account. So you're relying on a tax return that's not there anymore. You have that money sitting in a savings account. Right, some place to start. Tax return is a great time to start that savings account. So, anything else to add, gentlemen?
Love the information.
Yeah, good.
I would love to, but we'll have to wait for the next show.
Next show. All right. So we'll end on that note. I do want to kind of give a pub for our new show that we're going to be starting with our Neutral Voices.
Ice cold.
Ice Cold Podcast.
Ice cold.
Starting on October 11th, right? Wednesday.
Correct.
We're going to be alternating with the financial show every other week, where we're going to be some guys talking about some things, right?
Man, some serious conversations.
Some serious conversations.
Yeah, relationships, kids, family, moms.
The dynamic. I think that'll be our first episodes. The
politics.
The dynamic of the
Dynamics
family
of the
household.
family, yeah.
Now compared to maybe back in the 80s.
Yeah,
right? How it's
1980
changed.
versus 2023. What did it look like? What does it look like? Why the drastic changes? The fear factor, why kids are nowadays, they feel like instead of just immediately respecting an adult, you need to earn my respect. I'm a child, I'm a kid, but at the same time, I don't have to respect you as an adult. You need to earn that.
Choices. Kids
Totally
have too many
different
choices.
mindset. So we'll be discussing things like that.
Yep.
Why ice cold? Why the title of
Because
Ice
there's
Cold?
going to be some cold conversation.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All
Wait till you see
right.
it. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
A little
So-
chill down the back.
So that'll be October 11th, same time, 8:30 a.m. But till next week, we'll be back with the financial show, same time, 8:30 on Wednesday. We'll see you then. Peace.
Peace.
Happy trails.
Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. Good set.
Ice cold. That's.